My name is Katherine Kitterman, and I'm the Executive Director of Better Days. Our organization was founded as a nonprofit in 2017. Our co-founders, Mandy Grant and Nylan McBain, realized that there were some anniversaries coming up in 2020 that would be really important to celebrate women's leadership in our past. So 2020 was the anniversary of the 19th Amendment, 100 years of that amendment that extended women's voting rights, but it was the 150th anniversary of Utah women first voting. So we voted first in 1870, a full 50 years before most people across the country had the chance to do so. But there are women in every aspect of our society who have made a difference by noticing a problem and doing something to change that, or by just going about their days and going about their own lives. When we share stories of Utah's leadership in the past, a lot of people come to that with some preconceived notions about what Utah history is. There's pioneers and handcarts and a certain type of person that comes to mind, right, that we've all learned about. One of the things that's important to me is that we showcase the rich diversity of leadership that we have in every Utah community. When we worked with local artist Brooke Smart to illustrate and feature 50 women's advocates, we worked with different communities and asked them to pick a representative who they felt would be a good representative of their community or their organization. We worked with the Utah Tribal Council and asked folks from the different indigenous nations to choose a leader. We worked with people like the Japanese American Citizens League, Latinx leaders, others, because we feel that it's very important for kids and really for all of us to see people in every community who are leaders. It's important for me to see people in my own community who are leaders, and it's important for me to see people who have different life experiences than me, who have also made change happen. The process of going through that illustration was really unique. We worked with Brooke, an illustrator. We did a lot of historical research. We talked with family members, descendants, community leaders today, asking them what elements of this woman's life they would like to have represented in those illustrations. And we would work together. Brooke would come up with a sketch, and then she would send that to the family members or community leaders. They would have a chance to make suggestions or talk about the colors that were important, or say or make suggestions of things that they would change before Brooke did the final piece. So we really wanted those to be authentic representations of this woman that their community felt like really encompassed their story. One of the best things about illustration, rather than just a black and white photo, is you can bring in color, so it's more interesting and engaging. I'm a historian, and I don't even think black and white photos are very exciting. But there's also a piece there that with illustration, you can tell the full story of a woman's life. You can have colors and symbolism and items in the background that really encompass the full spectrum of what a woman has done in her life. And that's one of the things I love about those portraits. The first person that I'll share about is Sarah Young. And she was the first woman to vote in the United States under an equal suffrage law. So back on Valentine's Day, 1870, she cast her ballot in the Salt Lake City election, and she went along her day. She was probably the first woman to vote there because she was a teacher. She was probably on her way to work when she voted. And she made history and then continued on with her life. She didn't run for president. She didn't lead any organizations, but she made a difference because of her vote. Her vote opened doors to people across the country. I love Sarah's story because it shows that even a 23-year-old school teacher can make history just by voting, just by engaging in the political process. She was actually buried in Arlington Cemetery, and we found that her gravestone had her name spelled wrong. So it was misspelled on her headstone for 72 years until we got that fixed in 2020. We think it's important for Utahns to know that the first woman to vote was here in Utah, and that you don't have to be the president of anything to make a difference, that just by living your normal life, you can make history too. And one of the women in that series is Métis Bimbu Perry. She's from the Northwest Band of Shoshone, and she was a storyteller, an educator, a historian, and really a matriarch of the tribe. She was a woman who felt that her story of her people hadn't been told yet, and she felt that it was her duty and mission to do that. So she wrote down all of the stories people had told her in the past. She shared that history. She went to conferences. She made sure that people knew about the Bear River Massacre and that had occurred tragically with her people. There's now an interpretive center being built at the site, and it's all based on May's work to make sure that the story is told from her people's perspective. Her values and her questions were really important. She asked kids, what is your story going to be, when she met with them? And we think that's a beautiful reminder to all of us. What is your story going to be? What's your contribution going to be? Another leader in Utah history who I love is Alice Kasai. She lived in Salt Lake City during World War II. She and her husband were of Japanese ancestry, and he was actually taken to an internment camp after the war broke out. So Alice became the leader of the Japanese American Citizens League here in Salt Lake. She worked with that league to organize aid and packages and care for people who were in camps in Utah. And she also led in lobbying for the return of her husband and other people who had been taken away by the government. Alice is somebody who faced bigotry and racism and really injustice with an unflagging sense of patriotism and optimism. Alice's belief was that the more we learn about each other, the less we have to fear, that we can grow closer together and work together to solve problems. And so after World War II, she started exchange programs, sister city programs, the International Peace Gardens is her project, so many things that she could think of to bring people together to learn about other cultures so that we wouldn't have another time like that in our society. Alice said that when you see the need to speak out, you just do it. And that's a great motto, I think, for all of us. One of Utah's most famous women leaders is Martha Hughes Cannon. We're actually sending her statue to Washington, D.C. to represent Utah. Every state gets 2 statues in the U.S. Capitol, and she'll be going in soon. Martha was chosen because she was a suffragist, a frontier doctor, a public health advocate, and a state senator. And in 1896, when Utah gained statehood and women could run for office for the first time, she ran for the state senate against her own husband, and she won. So there's a really good story there. But I think the most important story about Martha is what she did when she was in office. Because she had gained education in medicine and in public speaking, and she had this training in public health, as a legislator, Martha started the State Board of Health. She worked on public health efforts to cut down on communicable disease, and she also established schools for blind and deaf students in Utah. She was really committed to making life better for working women and girls, and you see that in her legislation, in her preparation. For her whole life, she grew up knowing that she wanted to be a doctor, knowing that she wanted to change public health in Utah, and she did. I would love to see more visual representation of women's leadership in our state, whether that is in public art or the people who are sitting on the stand or a podium at events, statues, street names. There's a lot of ways that we send messages about who is important, both in the past and in the present. And I want to see more women represented there. I want to see more statues, more street names, more awards given in a woman's honor, and more women speaking at government and other public events so that we all can see women as leaders. This is an issue about us as human beings, as a society, that we all rise together. And so when boys and men and women and girls are involved and engaged in our society, we know we're a better place.